Okay, let's see if you guys can hear me. You guys can hear me? Maybe a little bit? Yeah, I realize I've trapped myself behind here. So I'm going to move around real quick. But also, I don't feel like I normally get nerves talking, but today I have some. So I don't know what's up with that, but be praying for me and we'll make it through. I'm going to be over here. This feels like better. I don't want to be in the middle. Okay, so we're going to be continuing our series that Darby started last week, which is called The Way of the Rabbi. So this is going to be looking at the teachings of Jesus and what he did and what he sends us out to do. So to start that off, we're going to get Hazael to come up and read the Beatitudes again. So while he's coming up here, I want this to really just be drilled in y'all's minds. I want the Beatitudes by the end of this series for you guys to just be able to remember it and almost have it memorized by how much we're repeating it. So we'll go ahead and just read the Beatitudes.
Okay. Blessed. Wait. It's not even how to say it. You got it. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you.
All right, thank you. If you guys aren't just kind of like shook to the core when you hear the Beatitudes, I don't think you're listening right. Like, Jesus is saying some really radical and crazy things here. And he's just kind of completely flipping our understanding of what it means to be human. He's flipping our understanding of the world upside down. My brother likes to say, actually, we're the ones living upside down, and he's flipping everything right side up again. And that's kind of what Darby, alluded to, talked about a little bit last week. And so if you were paying attention, you probably noticed that we're not going just sequentially through all these Beatitudes. And that's because we're hoping to pick up these themes that are present in them and kind of just take it through the rest of the Sermon on the Mount and look at Jesus' teachings as a whole and look at these themes that he's woven through his most famous teaching. And through those teachings, he's really just trying to reorient us to what it means to be a truly thriving human. He's reshaping how we think through multiple areas of our lives and bringing us into right relation with God and one another. So as we look at these Beatitudes tonight, keep that in mind. He's laying this foundation in the Beatitudes that he's going to build on for the rest of the Sermon on the Mount. You'll see these themes kind of woven throughout. So this week, we're going to cover, blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. And blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. So we're just, covering a light and easy one. Super, super chill today. No, obviously these are really heavy hitters. Like, depending on your background, I think if this was your first time hearing the Beatitudes, those would be the ones that are the most shocking and standing out to you, right? You're like, what? Like, that just seems opposite of what I feel like is normally true in life. Like, some of us were at this funeral yesterday, and I think the last thing on my mind when I was looking around is like, oh, blessed are all these people at this funeral who are mourning. That is just not what came to mind, right? So these Beatitudes, if we're really being true to them, man, they strike something different, right? They're really bold. And, I think that's not the only thing we mourn. Like, that's the common thing that comes to mind when we read that. But we also, can mourn the terrible things that have happened to some of us. It's left scars inside and pain that just won't seem to quite go away. We can be mourning broken relationships or relationships that feel like they're just never going to mend. And, just leave this background pain in our lives that just seems to follow us from room to room wherever we go. Or we could just be mourning the broken state of the world in general, and just how many people just hurt one another or just don't even care about one another. And you can just be mourning this just broken state of the world. And maybe you're in one of those seasons of mourning right now. Maybe you've been in the past, but Maybe you've never gone through it, but I think in general, no one gets to the end of life without actually having some sort of pain that they can mourn at the end of their life. And to all of that, Jesus says, blessed are you when you're going through those things, for you will be comforted. And I don't know about you guys, but my first impression is I'd just much rather not go through that stuff. Like, it's nice that I'm going to be comforted, but I'd rather just have that comfort right now or just not go through it. Like, that would be nice if I just didn't have that pain happen in the first place. And then there's, Jesus' next lines. The blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. These are just as tough to swallow, really. Most of us don't actually face persecution today, at least not here in America, and not to a large degree. But when Jesus was saying this originally, he was talking to people who would be hunted down and killed brutally for their faith. He was talking to people who were going to be thrown in arenas to be killed by wild animals. He's talking to people who are going to be burned alive and crucified. So when he says persecuted, the original audience, that is what they're picturing. They're not picturing like, oh man, the university's not being nice to us or whatever. Like, that's not what they're picturing. They're picturing death. They're picturing painful, terrible death, people chasing them down to kill them. That is what they're thinking of. That's not going to bring just a small amount of fear, right? That's going to be a terrifying word to these people. And to that, he says they're blessed when that is happening. And that is pretty scandalous, I think. Some heavy-hitting stuff that Jesus is laying out, and then calling us blessed when it happens. And the reality is that most of us deep down don't feel blessed when we're dealing with pain in the world, or dealing with the fears that loom over us, whatever they might be. Like, if there was a line just like queued up for like receiving some like mourning and persecution, I don't think I'd be like, sign me up, man. I'm like super pumped for that. I think I'm like, I'm running the opposite direction as fast as I can, right? Like, that is not my cup of tea. And yet Jesus is saying that we're blessed. And as I kind of thought about it, I'm like, yeah, this whole like just running from this pain and stuff, I think is a very common experience in our lives. Has anyone had those dreams that you like are trying to run away from like a monster or something like that, and you're like in gravel or you're just really slow? Like, is that just me? Anyone actually have those? Okay, yeah. I think it's pretty common. I want to tell you guys about mine a little bit. Mine are a little different than normal. I was growing up, and my family did a bunch of extreme sports. We did like motorcycle racing and wakeboarding and mountain bike riding and skateboarding, like all that kind of stuff. And mainly motorcycle riding and mountain biking. And so when I had these dreams as a kid, I would not be running. I would actually be riding a motorcycle. And instead of being some amorphous monster behind me, I think we have a slide for this. Maybe this is who was shaking me. I don't know why that just like got crammed in my brain at a young age. Like, this was the scariest thing imaginable. It's like big red area dude. And so like literally this is like a recurring nightmare I would have. This dude's chasing me. I'm on a motorcycle, which you would think would be great because I'm not running, right? But it's not great. And so as I'm trying to get away from him, just the further I go, the motorcycle just keeps shrinking until it's like this big. And then eventually it's just slowing down and over. I'm like, I'm going 1 mile per hour at the end of it. I'm like, I'll be better just running. But like, that's just what happened. That was like my recurring dream over and over again. And so I think all of us have experienced something maybe like that in our dreams. But I think in general, we've all experienced that in life, at large. Really, I think there's something unnerving and terrifying about being chased down by something that you just can't quite get away from. And as I'm thinking about it, really the majority of us spend our lives in just a real life version of that. We spend our lives trying to run away from all these fears and pains that crop up throughout life. At least that's like what it's felt like to me a lot of the time. I'm just kind of bouncing from fear to fear. Like, it seems like the second I deal with one fear and one thing I'm running from, now I'm just running from another thing. And so, when I was early on in school, it was this fear of like, man, if I just fail, I'm not going to get into a good college, and I'm not going to do this and that, and it's going to mess up my whole life. And, maybe once I got past high school, the fear was like, oh gosh, am I ever going to find someone that I'm actually going to be able to spend my life with? Am I handsome enough, or smart enough, or funny enough, or whatever enough to like have someone that will be with me? Darby and I, end up dating, and then that fear just kind of shifts, and it's like, man, am I good enough for her? Is she going to leave me one day because I'm not good enough? And then, the other college level fears come in, like, am I going to get a job after college? Is it going to be a good enough job? Are we going to be able to pay our bills? Are we going to be able to actually like live a good life after college? Or are we just going to be broke and end up homeless somewhere? And then, you graduate, start working, and I'm like, the fears just still come. Like now I'm like worried about my foundation at my house because I'm an old man. And like, I'm like worried about that. I'm worried about like taxes or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, just there's a thing after thing after thing that just follows us through life. And, it's different for different ones of us. I think most of us have some level of experience of that. There's just something always just seems to be looming behind us that we're running away from. You can take that down. You can just go back and say, that is kind of funny. That it's like, it's always behind me. But yeah, like I think even like, investment bankers, like these like really put together seeming people, really they're just running away from this fear of like, if I don't have enough money, am I gonna make it? Am I gonna be happy? Am I gonna be able to have a fulfilled life? If I don't make enough money, or I'm not successful, or are people not going to be impressed by me unless I do this and this and that? Like, everyone's running from something, right? It takes different forms, but it's just common for all of us. And so what makes these Beatitudes so scandalous when we first hear them is just that idea. Jesus is telling us, blessed are we when those things finally catch up with us. It's like these things that we would normally run from, when they finally catch up with us, that's when we're blessed. And that is a pretty wild statement. And remember that we're the ones living in the upside down. So whatever we're feeling like is kind of natural, Jesus is saying like, no, like that's not what it should be. He's trying to flip us right side up again. And so he really connects these Beatitudes to the rest of his teachings as well. And so part of what he continues to hint at for the rest of the Sermon on the Mount are these ways that we're trying to escape our fears and pains. And so right after the Beatitudes, right after they end, he jumps into this next section. And so he says, you are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything, except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in their house. In the same way, let your light shine before others. They may see that your good deeds, and glorify your Father in heaven. So I used to think that these were just very disconnected. That he did like the Beatitudes, and then he's like, okay, just jumping into these other teachings just randomly. But if you really look at it, no, he's saying this right after he talks about persecution, right? He's saying, blessed are you when you're persecuted. And then he jumps into this stuff about being the salt of the earth and light to the world. And so he knew that people were going to be afraid of persecution. That we're going to be afraid of standing out and facing the consequences of that. And he's pointing people to what it means to be his follower instead. And he knew we would be scared of being salty light, right? This like preserving thing in the world that brings flavor to the world and preserves Jesus' teachings. And being people that stand out, who are seen and who are examples to other people in your life and those around them. People that light up the dark corners of the world and inspire people towards Jesus. He knew that that would frighten us. He knew that, and that's why he started talking about it. And remember, he's talking to these people who knew that that was going to be a death sentence to them. That's his original audience. And now we're frightened that someone in the union might think we're just a bit weird, right? Like we don't see real persecution a lot anymore due to a lot of things. There's general acceptance or at least tolerance of Christianity, but also because people, I think, just don't act boldly enough oftentimes to bring it on. I don't think it's because we're scared of persecution most of the time. I don't think it's because we think someone's going to kill us for being righteous. What we're really scared of is being embarrassed or of being awkward, of someone, even a stranger, not liking us or thinking we're weird. And I'm talking to myself here too, not just you guys. I fall into this just as much. But those are the things that we actually end up being scared of and running from. And Jesus' warning to us is that when the salt is no longer salty, it's to be thrown out. He's saying that if we let these fears that we're running from, fears of pleasing these other people, stop us, we won't be able to participate in building his kingdom anymore. And that was spoken to an audience that would be facing being burned alive for being an outspoken Jesus follower. Not just look weird from someone, or look weird and someone thinks they're weird for just saying something faith related, right? We're dealing with very different things nowadays. And I don't think any of us are sitting around just being super proud of being people pleasers. Like, I know I'm not. Like, I would love to get over that. I would love to not care so much about what people think. And for a long time, I wish I could just stop wondering after every interaction how that person took this thing or that thing. I wish I could just be free of that and didn't care if people thought I was funny or smart or thoughtful. But those thoughts just followed me everywhere. And Jesus here is encouraging us towards freedom from those things with these passages. He's pointing us away from these fears because he knows we can't run away from him and serve him at the same time. Paul puts it like this in Galatians 1:10. Am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? Or am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ. That should sting, right? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ. The question becomes, are we more afraid of people or of God? If we are so worried about what people think about us that we're just trying to please them, we oftentimes just give up on actually pleasing God in favor of pleasing those people and maintaining whatever we think our image is. And that's what Jesus is getting at with salt losing its saltiness. We can't do both. We can't run from persecution and serve him at the same time. We can't be consumed with running away from these fears because we're going to miss out on what God is inviting us to. That's what he continues to get at later on the Sermon on the Mount. We're going to jump to the next chapter, and this is verse 19. If you want to follow along, I think it should be up there. Perfect. Awesome. So it says, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and vermin destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. He's saying, don't store up treasures for yourself on earth where moth and vermin destroy. Or in our modern day language, that would probably be something more like, don't store up wealth on earth where stock markets are going to crash and inflation is going to keep rising and your financial dreams just keep being a little bit further out from your reach. And why do we do that in the first place? Why do we even think that's going to help? It's fear. Again, it's fear. We're trying to build up and store up this wealth so that we feel secure if an emergency happens. We're storing it up because we think that if we don't have money, we'll never actually be happy. Or we won't be able to rest easy unless we have this specified number in our bank account. But once again, the number just keeps changing as we get older, as society changes, it just keeps changing. These things keep moving on us. And we have these fears looming behind us of not having enough, and we can just never get far enough ahead. It just keeps following us over and over again, unless we just win the lottery or something, but that doesn't happen often, right? Then we all have these fears following us. We're still trying to run away from the pain and fears that seem out to get us. And he's using this specific example of storing up money because that's one of the most common ways that we end up pursuing our own protection outside of God. He's setting up this whole premise of us trying to provide for ourselves and take care of ourselves throughout the whole Sermon on the Mount. It's just sprinkled throughout. And Jesus' message is the same for all that kind of stuff. You can't serve two masters. Either you're going to hate the one and love the other, or you're going to be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. He's saying if you're trying to serve these two different things, you just won't be able to. With our dream metaphor from earlier, you can't be running with your head turned backwards the whole time and then expect to end up where God is. You're going to run into something that's not God. That's what he's saying. If you're running from these things, you're going to run into storing up wealth for yourself, or you're going to run into people pleasing. You can't do that. So what does Jesus say to all this, right? He set that all up. That's our premise. What does he say next? He says, therefore, always note in Scripture, if it says therefore, you got to be paying attention. What's it there for? That's the whole fun about that, right? And so he set that all up, and he's saying this is the answer to that. He says, therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? And why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow. They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown in the fire, will he not much more clothe you, you of little faith? So do not worry, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For the pagans run after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own.
Yeah.
That's the linchpin to this whole story. That's the linchpin to this whole thing he's been setting up. He's flipping it all on its head. He's building up wealth so we can take care of ourselves and provide for our needs. The fear of people disliking us and hurting us, the pain and mourning that we feel in life. To all that, he's saying we've got it backwards. Life isn't about escaping pain and suffering. Life isn't about getting away from those fears of ours. Life isn't about running away from all those things. Life is about running towards Jesus, running towards right relationship with him, about building his kingdom, which mainly consists of loving him and loving other people and pointing them to him. So I want you all to listen to this next point, because it's really my only point for tonight. The gospel enables us to stop running from something and start running towards someone. The gospel enables us to stop running from something and start running towards someone. And I know that is super cheesy. Like, I came up with it. I'm like, man, that's cheesy. But it's been helpful for me. I've used different words for that in different parts of my life, but that has been a very, very helpful reminder for me in my life. When all these things start coming up in my mind again, like, what will happen if blank? Does blank person like me? Whatever that fear is, right? Whatever that thing is looming behind me that's trying to chase me is. I have to remind myself, I don't have to run from that stuff anymore. I get to just run to Jesus. I just get to focus on him. That's it. I don't have to run from those things. Jesus wants us to stop running from that. Running away from the fear of insecurity in life and ending up running towards money and comfort. We run from people disliking us, so instead we run towards people pleasing. We're running with our necks craned backwards because we're so fixated on getting away from those things that, we end up sometimes knowingly, sometimes unknowingly in these places that can be deadly traps for us. More deadly than those fears actually were. It would be better for us if those fears actually caught up to us sometimes. Because if the fears actually caught up to us, maybe it would make us trust in the Lord more. Maybe it would actually force us to be closer to Jesus. And yet we run away full tilt. And what Jesus is trying to do is make us look forward, to change our course, to run towards him, and keep our eyes trained on him and not behind ourselves. It's Peter when he's walking on the water with Jesus, right? When his eyes are on Jesus, he's staying on that water. And then when he takes his eyes off Jesus, he starts sinking. That's what Jesus is talking about here. Like, look at me. Run to me. That is what you need to do. Not, don't pay attention to that stuff behind you. Now I kind of wish that monster was back. Right? Don't pay attention to that. That's not it. Just focus on me. That's what he's saying. We've got to stop trying to escape the pain through other means. It can't work. It won't work. We can't build our own security and also have security and safety that comes from Jesus. We can't build our own security and also have security and safety that comes from Jesus. He's not saying those things won't eventually catch up to us. He's not saying those things won't happen. Actually, Jesus says quite the contrary a lot of times, right? He says, in this world you will have trouble. What he's doing is helping us redefine that suffering and pain. He's offering us a way to rid the pain and fear in our lives of its power. That doesn't mean it's not going to hurt us. It doesn't mean it's not going to suck sometimes. In fact, he promises us that it will. But it doesn't have the power to overcome and destroy us anymore. And more than that, we don't have to run or live on the run anymore either. We can face the pain head on and realize that Jesus provides his comfort, love, and support when we're in the pain, not just taking the pain away from us. We're not following God to escape suffering. We follow God and he transforms that suffering. There's a key difference there. He transforms our misery into ministry. He takes us from being pitiful and makes us powerful. That doesn't mean that it doesn't still hurt like hell in the process. Oftentimes we're praying that God will take us out of a circumstance or that he won't let that fear come true, instead of praying that he'll just be with us during that time and teach us to trust in him more. In the pain and hardship we may experience in life, we're storing up treasures where they can't be destroyed. And we're promised a future that we have nothing to fear anymore. We're promised a future without pain. And for now, that's not our reality, but Jesus helps us redefine the reality that we do have. He frees us from that endless running. He offers hope amidst the struggles of the world. He promises that he knows what we truly need better than we do, and he's going to provide it. Letting us have the freedom to stop looking over our shoulder and instead look at him. So if you're person who worries that you're never enough, that people will leave you or be disappointed in you, or just outright dislike you if you don't perform well enough, Jesus offers freedom from that. If you switch to running towards him instead of just running away from all those fears, you can experience what it's like to be valued just for yourself. He offers love and belonging beyond anything else you've ever experienced. You can experience what it's like to do your best, not out of fear of failure or needing to prove yourself, but out of love for Jesus and love for what you're actually doing. Now, if you're a person who worries that you'll never be happy or fulfilled unless you have X amount of money, or have X amount of amazing experiences and traveling the world, and you'll never be happy unless you do that, Jesus offers freedom from that fear. He offers fulfillment and meaning in life right now. He offers in the next life blessings far greater than anything we could ever come up with here. That is what he's promising us. If you're a person who constantly worries what other people think of you, Jesus offers you freedom from that. He offers you security in your relationship with him. He promises you love that goes far beyond anything you've experienced in this life or ever will. He promises you value and love that doesn't come from others' changing opinions of you, where you're having to constantly just worry about that, but instead comes from his unchanging love for you. If you're a person who feels like the pain in your life feels so big that you think it's going to overwhelm you and overtake you, Jesus offers you freedom from that. He promises you that you're going to be comforted. And that doesn't mean that all the pain magically goes away, but he promises to be with you in that pain. And he promises that one day the pain will all fall away. In chapter 7, Jesus says, "Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down and the streams rose and the winds blew and beat against the house, yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house, and it fell with a great crash." When Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowds were amazed at his teaching, because he had taught as one who had authority and not as their teachers of the law. Endlessly running from our worst nightmares is just like building a house on the sand. It's never going to work. We just keep on running. The house ends up crumbling. Only building a house on the rock, only running with our eyes fixed on Jesus, can we build something that will actually last. So some of you have experienced or are currently experiencing pain that I can't even imagine. And I'm so truly, deeply sorry that you've had to go through that. But I do know with absolute certainty that Jesus is enough. He's worth it all, as hard as that is to believe sometimes. He's the one who can truly comfort you and heal you. Nothing else in this world will ever truly fully provide you comfort from these things. But Jesus can and will if you let him. If you bring those things to him. There's no hiding it from him anyways. He knows all that. There's no use pretending you're okay. He doesn't say blessed are you when you pretend you're not mourning or pretend you're not persecuted. You're blessed when you are mourning and persecuted. And he can handle it. He can handle it, and you will too if you let him. I promise you will find true healing and wholeness. And what Jesus is saying with those outrageous statements in the Beatitudes is that however deep the pain and fear cuts in our lives, a relationship with him and participation in his kingdom is somehow truly worth it. That however bad the hurt is, we can just trust that Jesus knew pain and suffering. He is the expert in that. He's been through it. And that the blessing of participating in the kingdom is way better. The reward we are saving up is going to be worth it all. And so there's a song that's really ministered to me throughout the years when I'm going through tough times. And I want to share it with you guys. And so I'm going to play it over the speakers and have the lyrics pulled up. Actually, I didn't tell you to pull up the lyrics. Reagan, can you pull up the lyrics for Psalm 42 by the sing team? And yeah, I just encourage you guys to let God speak to you during this time while we're listening to it. Just be thoughtful and reflective. And if you're in one of those hard times right now, I just encourage you to bring that before God and to lean into him. He really is sufficient for you. So I was going to pull out the Psalm 42 by Sing Team. Lyrics for that.